Hey guys, this will be video 2 for the how to restore a vintage Gibson SG, which probably is going to turn into a custom. I'll say probably, that's exactly what we're going to turn it into. Because the more research I did about this guitar body, all of the 69 SGs that I found, the real dark ones, they were customs. They had the parchment pickguard. Now, I'm not saying that Eric's going to go with the parchment pickguard, but it definitely led us into the direction of just going ahead and finish this guitar back as a custom, because that's probably what it was to begin with. And this will be the first SG restoration I've ever done. So there's a part of me, as I was pretty clear with everyone in the first video, I had a lot of research to do, but I also wanted to make certain that, spending all that time with the client, that we really were on the same page about what it was I was going to be able to do. But also, here are obviously, so we got a body here, and we've got some waffle back tuners. But what I was going to be able to offer. Now, these are the shalers that he had sent that we might be using, but I'm going to be sending these back to him. So, Eric, those will be in the mail probably tomorrow. And that's the only thing in the box. So, let's start assessing what it is we have. So, there's no sense in opening this up since that's going to be shipping back to the owner, the client. But let's take a look. Oh, yeah. Very nice. Those are basically like a Gibson Deluxe or the Shaler type Deluxe. Really nice looking tuners. But nonetheless, those would require that you drill out a fairly large headstock hole. Let's find out what these waffle back tuners are, because he mentioned, when we were on the phone, we actually started communicating a little bit on the phone, and he said, man, by the way, I've got some vintage tulip waffle backs, and how historically accurate is that for a 1969 Les Paul custom, or SG custom? That's beautiful. Let's look at, because he had mentioned to me that I believe some of them might be have a bent shaft, and my dad was a welding instructor at the local vocational school. So I was doing acetylene and oxygen welding when I was probably 10 years old. I've been around a lot of metallurgical type stuff, but he only has one push-in ferrule, which is cool. Eric, I'm sure you're watching this video. There's actually a set of 5 of these exact ferrules, because I did not want to give you that information until I saw this. But there is a set of 5 of these on eBay for sale. The guy was asking like $120 or best offer. Probably could get them for less than that. And I'm not so certain that's such a very good deal, because $120 is a lot of money to me. Well, I've got that one upside down. And I apologize, I don't have a headstock. I don't have a right-hand headstock. But it's very important to me that I'm able to show what is actually in the box and what's included and the initial condition of them, so that we know what we have to work with. So let me just set these up briefly. Okay, hold on. Very nice. So we don't have the mounting screws. I'll need to order a set of gold screws, and I'll be able to relic these parts so that they match. And even if we had to go with reproduction press-in ferrules, I can relic them as well. But and I wouldn't recommend spending $120 on 5 of these. That's a little extreme. But we've got our waffle back tuners, so that's a good deal. And I didn't really see any major noticeable bent shafts. Okay, here's something I definitely would recommend. If you're going to try to keep up with vintage parts, just go ahead and make certain that you guarantee that that doesn't get lost. Let's put that to the side. Now, let's see what we have. Oh, and also on the, I mentioned, yeah, definitely send me a pick guard so that I've got something to work with if we make a reproduction, which he and I both agreed that he's already found a Murphy Lab Gold. Uh, what's that called? Maestro Vibrola. But I got to tell you, man, this thing is absolutely beautiful. Make sure nothing's going to fall apart. So let me get everything off the table. Check the time. Under 6 minutes. Yeah, it even has a little bit of a vintage smell to it. Is that not beautiful? That is Honduran mahogany, my friends. Wow. Never seen that. That's terrifying. Look how thin that is. Very, very interesting. So let's do a little bit of a disassembly here. Not really going to do any work in this video. Let me slow down. Okay. That looks like the original cover. Very cool. And I got to tell you, from a standpoint of wear, this thing is beautiful. Light as a feather. Man, it's light as a feather. You know, that's a distinctive earlier design right there with the cutaway. Really beautiful. What I meant when I was talking about this would be an extremely complex body to build is, you know, doing all of these French curve type compound radius cuts, because everything's different. You know, it flares out really deep right there, flares on the back. It would just be really difficult to replicate this guitar. Extremely difficult. So I got to pay a lot of attention and be extremely careful about that right there. But you don't want to come in and start making changes to try to make it better and all that stuff. But there is a possibility as I progress through the build. Well, I'm gonna stop because I don't want to start engineering everything too soon, because I may change my mind a little bit. But nonetheless, I got to be extremely careful about working with that paper thin piece of material right there. Even if it weren't paper thin, look how beautiful all these joins are. There's no damage, and that is so rare. Typically, you've got like a real nasty tear out right there, and wood is missing, and you're going to be matching and blending and stuff like that. But not the case with this one. All I got to do is just guarantee that I do a beautiful fitment. Even if for some strange reason, if this was not perfectly precise, then as I said in video 1, I will be building the neck around this body. So even if this were not true, then that's okay. Everything that I'll be doing about the fitment, it will be true to the guitar, but it might not be true to perpendicular. Keep a little magnet on your table, because I don't want to try to like start cataloging or categorizing things right now. Throw that over here. Okay, be careful with this, because this is the first time I've ever worked with one of these. I don't know how they work. It looks like it would just slide back. Yeah. Very cool. Not sure if that's original or if that's a reproduction. This looks pretty old, but he had mentioned it is an older one. But I'm not going to start diagnosing anything like, oh, are these vintage correct? I could care less right now. That's irrelevant. But that is actually in really, really good condition. So If it fits, that's awesome. If it did have to be changed, then I'll be communicating with Eric. Hey, we got one screw hole here that has already been, bangered with a little bit. How do you want me to treat that? Do you want me to take it back historically accurate, or do you want me to just fill the one that might be historically accurate? Because I got a strong feeling that one right there on the bottom. Well, I'm not gonna say that one on the top is real fresh mahogany. So it seems like that would be the one that was the secondary drill, and this would have been original because it's kind of stripped out a little bit. But who knows? But these look very much historically accurate. But who knows? Beautiful, beautiful guitar. So cool to get the opportunity to work on something like this. So Eric, I appreciate you trusting me with your guitar, man. So let's continue forward. And for you guys that are really serious about vintage restorations, about 2, if not 3 days into some pretty deep conversations and quoting and conversation back and forth with Guy, Chip. If you're watching this, I appreciate you dropping in. Chip owns a 71 Les Paul that looks like a 59. This thing's beautiful, and I'm giving him some quote options to replace the neck on that 71 Les Paul. So that might very well be taken off here as well fairly soon. And quite frankly, the cool thing about that, I could work on the two guitars in tandem while one's, glue's drying or something like that. You're stepping over and doing another video for 71 Les Paul restoration. So stay tuned for the next operation. Yeah, this is definitely, and even Eric told me that this was a reproduction piece here, I believe. But I'm pretty sure this is historically accurate. So I don't see the point in taking it off just yet because I want to make certain that I've got the correct size screwdriver and I don't risk stripping out any screws. But I say that to say this. Let me just go ahead and keep going a little bit because I do like the idea of now that if all this is on camera, I know that I'm missing one screw. That's pretty long. It's pretty cool. It's a nice long screw. And see, with your little magnetic island over here, you're guaranteed to not lose anything. And it's not like you're stripping the entire guitar down where things could get confusing. But if you were stripping down a whole vintage guitar, then you might want to just go ahead and catalog everything, obviously. Well, I say might. I definitely would be cataloging, cataloging and using a Sharpie to identify exactly what it is I'm doing, especially like if I had Chip's vintage Les Paul here, and they're on the same table, and to make certain that I don't get, confused and get them crossed over. Nice. Now these are vintage too. You can just tell. I can feel it. I can feel their history. This really is a beautiful guitar, and cannot wait to see this one come together. I think it was in video one where I'd mentioned my brother had a 60s SG, but what I failed to clarify was in that video that my brother gave me that guitar for like my 14th birthday. I think I was either 12, 13, or 14. And it was really cool the way he did it. It was just a really cool brotherly thing. But that was my first electric guitar. It was like a 60s SG, my first electric. I had played acoustic for years. I had already played acoustic since I was like 7 or 8 years old. So I was already doing the James Taylor finger picking and Neil Young. Listen to that. let me get all the rattly stuff off first, and then we'll do some tap tone. See, that's not a vintage correct screw. So I think what it is Eric had provided three modern screws. Two were in the pick guard, and then just that one. There might have been two in the back pick guard, but I don't think so. But I'm pretty sure he went ahead and removed. Yeah, this looks definitely its original. Wow. You have any idea what that's worth? that's that's money. That's money in the bank right there, brother. A lot of money. Very cool. Behold. Isn't that beautiful? No damage, no cracks, nothing for that fragile little design. Look how beautiful that is right there. Let me get in the camera. Sorry if I'm breathing in the camera. I'm trying to hold my breath. But and I'll just go ahead and show you a trick with these studs in case I forget, like removing the studs. I'm not going to attempt to remove the studs because what I would want to do is put my 80-watt soldering iron on it first and kind of heat it up a little bit in the event someone might have glued these in or epoxied these in, because the last thing you would want to do is start, trying to take them out and thinking that you're accomplishing something only to snap them off in the body. And that would be a nightmarish situation. That looks vintage, correct? So let's go ahead. Put a little tape on that because that's going to be some sort of type of alloy. First off, let's see if we can get lucky if they just move by hand. Which they're not. So I'm not going to fool with them. He did mention that they looked bangered a little bit. They looked like they might have been bent, but I don't see it. And here's something I'll share with you guys that I just witnessed. These are leaning forward a little bit. Now they may be bent, but they may have been installed on a bit of a pitch. So before you start making any assumptions on anything, always make note of what is it? Let me get this in the camera because this is my visual. See that? They're definitely leaning forward. Okay, so that way when you're going back, if you can, oh, I do have one here. It's pretty cool. This is a Tone Pros, but it sure fits fairly nicely. And also, before you remove any studs, you would want to take your measuring device, get some sort of record. Okay, right now I am exactly 15 millimeter on that one. And I'm just barely over 15 millimeter on that one. Now there's a very strong possibility there would be a ground wire. So let me look down there. I'm gonna try to look down this myself. I don't know if you'll be able to see anything. I don't see a ground wire like broken off up in there. And I'm not sure how Gibson did their ground wire. Oh, here. Looks like there might be a little slot. Let me get a toothpick. On all my vintage Gretsch restorations, there it is. There it is. Okay, very cool. So unless you were really paying attention, there's the ground wire location from the bridge. So as I'd mentioned, Eric, usually when I'm building a guitar, like if I'm building whatever it is, if it has a hardtail, when I'm pressing the treble side anchor in, then I've installed a hard wire, I've installed a ground wire in there first. Then I press that anchor in, but as I mentioned, I'm not about to come in here and start changing their historical design. And the fact that unless this was a butchered up body and we had turned it into a hardtail, then that's how I would have done the grounding wire. It would have been internally. But since we have this beautiful, beautiful little slot right there, then that's where the little bit of dust came out from 1969. And consider I was born in 68. It's pretty cool. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful piece of mahogany. But if you're watching this, you already know that. Now, the reason I had mentioned to Eric, the more research I had done, man, we need to really think through this project because of what we have here in front of us. As I explained to him, this might not even be a SG standard because he initially contacted me. He was like, SG standard. And I'm not saying he didn't know any better, but it is, the fact that this is chrome, it would lead one to believe that it was possibly a chrome 69 SG standard in the walnut. But where I'm going with this, every SG that I found that was this extremely dark walnut, which apparently they introduced in 68, it was a Les Paul custom with a parchment pickguard. Now, I'm not saying either here nor there, Eric. That's not what I'm trying to twist your arm. I was justifying to Eric, well, man, if we're going to restore this guitar, let's make certain that we bring it back truly vintage correct. And if it was possibly a custom, then let's turn it back into a true custom, which we all know the difference. Block inlays, split diamond, headstock, that's a custom. Bigger headstock, that's a custom. That's a well, I'm not going to start quoting numbers because they're all over the map, but Eric knows the numbers, and they are multi-thousand-dollar guitars. So that's what I meant by in video 1, or maybe video 2, which I actually erased because there was a lot of unknowns. But I had mentioned I think it was in video 2, Eric and I had been talking about, he had asked me what did I think about possibly machining this area out. Okay. I have to be extremely careful with this guitar to make certain that I don't damage it. Okay, he had asked me what did I think about the possibility of machining this out and carrying the tenon, possibly up into the body if for more strength or whatever. But as I clarified to Eric, he had already sent me the pictures, and I was like, in a real nice way, and I'm pretty sure I covered this in video 2, oh, no, let's not dare change anything that's historically accurate. Even if this is a little bit of an inferior design, there are definitely numerous things that I can do down here to guarantee that we've got a really beautiful fit. I've got another neck here. This is off in 1980, and but it was off of Les Paul. I don't expect anything to marry up, but I was curious to see if maybe this more narrow tenon might fit. Because see, this is your historically accurate 1.5. I think this is 1.5 inch. I'm pretty sure this is 1 1/4. It's a little bit more narrow. So, in other words, I will not be machining this out to receive a 1.5 inch tenon. I will be machining the tenon to fit that. You guys already know that. I've driven that home. But we definitely will not be machining through that body, even if it's remaining 1 1/4, okay? Because we want to keep it historically accurate. Once someone, after the restoration is finished, even once you remove this cover, someone can look down in here and realize Okay, we're almost 100% confident that it did receive some sort of neck replacement. Whoever did that neck replacement was wise enough to know to not touch any of that stuff. All right, always want to keep your table clean. Let me check the time. Okay, 25 minutes of shock and awe. You don't get to do these jobs every day. This is the type project that comes across the table of the George Gruen types or the Joe Glazer types up in Berry Hill. Um, George Gruen, Gruen Guitars in Nashville. And I had mentioned, maybe in video too, I might have mentioned it briefly in video one, but I used to live up in Franklin, Tennessee for about 15 years, and I was building guitars up there, and I consulted with all those guys and met them, and it's really cool. But it wasn't uncommon to walk back in their repair shop and see something like this on the table where someone's doing exactly what we're about to do. This is a one-piece body. It has had some overspray because I see some running on it a little bit. So, but that's okay. It's cool. Whoever did it, they did a beautiful job, and it definitely is a lacquer. Let's do some tap tones. And this may sound like I'm banging on the guitar, but I'm not. I'm just going to be touching. I'm just going to be doing tap tones very gently. Wow, it's off the charts. So what does that tell us? Zero cracks. There's no voids in here. There's no cracks. I'd be surprised if this guitar's ever even been dropped. I just see, your typical little. See, that's a pretty nasty little ding right there, but it's a character mark. But what's really beautiful, and if you go to my very first guitar restoration video series, it's this 1980 Gibson Les Paul, the very first guitar restoration series I did. And it was completely broken out down here, was completely gone. The top was the maple cap was completely rotted out back here. It was gone, had major rust and deterioration and all the rest. But I say all that to say this: even when I tapped on that guitar, you still heard the Honda and mahogany. Just and the cool thing about the SG, man, it's got a real throaty growl. I can already hear the growl. I got a good idea of what it's going to sound like. And I got to tell you, this is off the charts cool. That lets you know that a lot of this was being done by hand. They were drilling from the top, and it's so thin. See, this is a 3/8" shaft, USA. If it fits, I'll put it through. If it binds, I won't force anything. Okay, that one went through with these. But see, that's a 3/8" shaft. So it's the perfect depth to allow you to still have the lock washer on the back of the potentiometer shaft. Where I'm going with this, I'll get back to the tear out, but it's the perfect depth for your 3/8" CTS type shaft. So, but when they were drilling this atop their drill press, it might have been that they should have done all of this initial drill layout first, then did their route work, and that would have guaranteed that you didn't have any tear out. And this is typical. That looks suspect of a Forstner bit being used to drill through that. So all of this route work was probably done first, and then that final work got drilled out. It was probably a quality Forstner bit, but if you're going through that thin of a body, you got to go through really clean and very, very patiently. But if they were doing a little bit of production work that day and the guy at the drill press operator got a little bit heavy-handed, well, then you're going to get a little bit of tear out. Does it hurt the value of this guitar? Hell no, not at all. So that's historically accurate. Okay, it's a beautiful guitar. Let's see. That looks like that might be some cherry right there. So it might have been cherry, but from what I can see, whoever did the restoration, that's a beautiful dark walnut. And, and it's Eric's guitar. He elected to go the route of the custom. No serial numbers, obviously, as I've already clarified in one of the videos. I don't do serial numbers, but this being an authentic Gibson product, I don't have a problem bringing it back to historically accurate. And because it is the dark walnut, it would be historically accurate to go with the custom block inlays rather than the trapezoid. Okay, and it's gonna be beautiful. Okay, check the time again. Uh-oh. All right, 31 minutes. And when I say the custom, it'll have it's custom. We've already ordered these parts. I had sent this. I've been communicating with Eric back and forth, not the past 4 or 5 days because we'd already sealed up the job about a week ago, but I had sent him pictures of the different options on the Pearl and stuff like that. And when you're working with a client that you've never worked for before, you don't know them, you're both testing the waters to obviously see whether you even want to work together. And I got a pretty good read on people, and I'm a pretty trusting guy anyway, probably a little bit too trusting, but I could just read right on the front end. Eric was just a real knowledgeable guy, communicated really well, and seemed like someone, if I had a problem or a concern or an issue, he would be the type that wouldn't freak out if I presented him with some sort of issue that is off the charts. And I'm going to get back on point, but I didn't mention any of this stuff to Eric on the front end until I began to realize and do my research. Man, every custom that I found was the dark walnut, and I didn't find any SG standard that was the dark walnut. And that's when I let him know. I said, dude, this is your guitar, man. Whatever you want to do here, we're going to go in that direction. And because obviously we're not doing serial numbers. We're not doing fakes. We're not doing that stuff. We're doing a historically accurate restoration. And that's when I let him know, if you want to go this route, and I tried to give him as fair of a deal as possible so that he wouldn't feel like, that budget was an issue. But I let him know, take a pick, plan A or plan B. They're the same price, and he elected to go with the custom, but a lot based on the fact that we know it's going to look historically accurate as well. Now, I don't recommend doing the stinger on the back at all, but I could if you wanted that, Eric, and I don't really want to do that, but we'll cross that bridge later on. Right now, I want to build the neck and the headstock so everything about it looks vintage correct. And then with these waffle back tuners that he sent me, that's where it became an incredibly cool project where the client is as comfortable being involved in making the decisions and suggestions to the builder as I am the builder to the client, saying, hey, we could go in this direction if you want, or that direction. And it's totally your call. And it was real neat right when we were on the phone right there at the end. He made the statement like, you know what, man, I've got these old waffle back tuners I had forgotten all about. And, what do you think about that? Or maybe he just told me, let's go with those. But I did clarify, yeah, please send the Shalers too in case I can't use the waffle backs. But I had not even seen the waffle backs. But this whole project started materializing right there at the end where it just came together in the last 5 minutes of the conversation. And then that night I sent him some pictures or maybe it was the night before I had sent him pictures of the different pearl options, whether it's the the Australian white kind of vivid figure, or since this is a 50-something, 56-year-old guitar, if you want, we could go with the gold mother of pearl, like I did in my 59 replica here, and which I'd complained about that one being a little bit too dark, but it's only too dark in camera because of that halogen light. If you turn this in enough light, you'll realize that this pearl is absolutely beautiful in the gold. So what did we do? We went with gold block pearl inlay. We'll be doing the Bolivian rosewood fretboard. I only have 2 of these boards left, So Eric's going to get one of them, and hopefully Chip will trust me to restore his 71. He'll get the other rosewood possibly if we're not able to use his vintage fretboard, which I take that back, Chip, because I know you'd already mentioned you really want to continue using your fretboard if we can. But back to Eric's guitar, we'll be going with basically the gold mother of pearl in block inlay, and then the gold mother of pearl split diamond. A custom, man. That right there. It'll be the gold mother of pearl with the even the gold Gibson, and no serial number. I want to clarify that for all you legal guys out there, because I've had a lot of people complain to me about, blah blah blah. And it's like, no, you don't. As long as I clarify replica, or either authentic restoration, then there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Now, I'd forgotten to clarify, Eric, as well as Chip, if you're watching this video. I'm sorry. Chip. I've done so many jobs, the names are kind of blended together. Chip, if you're watching this video, this is a two-piece neck. That's a two-piece Honduran mahogany. And if it comes from the same board, virtually undetectable. I'm not going to use that SG as a stand, but hopefully you can see that. Let me see if I can do this. You can see how the annular ring goes off in that direction, and then the annular ring goes off in that direction. If you couldn't see it, kind of try to look for that. So if you know how to rough out your wood from the same board, then your glue joints, which is called the ears, become virtually undetectable. That one might show a little bit, according to how we're looking at. Yeah, look at that. See how that becomes almost undetectable? See, there's a glue joint right there. So that's an ear. But I chose to do the stinger just because I love the stinger. And so that's a two-piece Honduran mahogany neck. We're not going to be using that on these guitars, or this guitar, or the 71 replica. 71 restoration if I do that Les Paul. But I just want you guys to see that once I start machining this, or I'm going with this, all I have in-house is this really beautiful 5A flamed maple, which I definitely love and think is beautiful. But these guitars would not have been receiving that in the 70s. This would have been allocated to the master level, like 175s or 335s or something like that. But I still want to use that on this guitar, Eric, if you're cool with that. But if you prefer that it be stained extremely dark and almost kind of black out, if you prefer, I can build the multi-piece neck out of the same Honduran mahogany and then just make it look more in keeping with this vintage cracked guitar. Please read between the lines. I'm not trying to downsell you to something different, but I just want to let you know, if you don't want to see any transparency in the back of that neck, and if you don't want to see that vivid jazz guitar type flamed Honduran, then I could use a different maple. I could use a different Honduran mahogany if you prefer. But as of right now, you have paid for this right here, okay? And these, I would only be able to get 3 necks out of this. So Chip, if you're watching this video, one of those necks could be yours if you want that for your Les Paul. But back to Eric's SG. I like it. So let me check the time. And I may do a little bit of, now I'm not going to fool with any sort of dimensional measurements and stuff like that, because I'm not going to judge the guitar based on a set of drawings made by someone that might be a little bit inaccurate. Because, yeah, the drawings here, now keep in mind, this is typical. I'm pretty sure these drawings are based on like a 1961 When I lay this body atop this, I see just a very slight amount of variation. And there's no way I can show it in the camera, but it's typical on the true like 59 Les Paul type guitar or the true 61 SG. It might have been a little bit bigger footprint, not much. This typically didn't change, but typically they got a little bit smaller right here. And what I'm looking at based on this piece of paper, this body right here is a little bit fatter down here by about 3/16 of an inch. It's not much, but you know, they're a little bit different. And if anything, it's just from a cost conscious standpoint. You know, beautiful, super wicked thing. It's really cool. Okay, so probably enough conversation. I think I did clarify this is a one piece body. This is pretty much perfectly plain sewn. Oh, that's awesome. And I didn't really clarify this in video one, but I probably did in video two, which I ended up erasing because mostly video two was just a bunch of information explaining to the client options on doing this route, don't do this route. And I definitely had driven home, no, let's not touch the original body. And here are the 5 reasons why. It was like an hour-long video of me saying, please trust me with your project. I'm not going to let you do anything that would be a mistake, nor am I going to suggest anything that would be a mistake. And that's why I didn't do that video, because once I sold the job, I didn't need to leave that information up. So anyway, I'll weigh it in the future videos, but it's the lightest body I've ever held. So it definitely means it could be a potential headstock diving guitar, but I'm going to quote Eric when I had mentioned Eric on the very front end. I had not seen pictures of the body, anything. I had no idea. I didn't even have any idea if he truly had an authentic Honduran mahogany SG. And I mentioned to him, I said, well, at a minimum, even if I do the restoration, if you want, we could come in and I could drill out and install studs and put a hardtail on it, or we could remove these and do like a Leo Quan wraparound type, badass bridge. And he was like, no, I like the idea of keeping it historically accurate. And even if it is a bit of a headstock diving guitar, I like the idea of keeping the old vibrola on there for weight control. So, Eric, I'll give you full credit for that suggestion right there. And I can assure you, once I open this box, the last thing I would have been doing was drilling studs in here to put a hardtail on. So they're out there, guys. If you keep an eye on eBay and Craigslist and whatnot, you'll always run across someone that's got something that you can pick up for a really fair deal. And if this guitar was historically intact, if this was actually the true original dark walnut, then it's a $12,000 to $15,000 guitar today. What's it going to be tomorrow? It depends on if Joe Bonamassa walks out on stage with one, or something like that. So, which is kind of comical. I think that's cool. But Joe, so if you're watching, get an SG, man. Help us improve the value of them. Or maybe he plays an SG every now and then. I don't know. But it's really cool how the market will fluctuate. But we're getting to a point to where all of the 50s guitars, regardless of their condition, they're almost unobtainable now. And I've witnessed it even in the vintage collectors up in Nashville. Even they're beginning to question, should I really put $250,000 in a '59 Les Paul? Obviously having the George Gruens out there guaranteeing that that's an authentic '59 and it was owned by pick your poison. That's something to consider. But this guitar is only 10 years younger, and we're going to get to a point to where eventually these guitars are going to be averaging $20,000-$25,000 and up. So, and this is a rare one, and I can't drive home the importance as much. And even Eric had clarified this to me on the front end. It's a one-piece body, and that's pretty cool. And even though this was beginning to get into the Norland era of the company, you have to keep in mind when they did company changes, hell, that was basically just accounting and investors and the those teams. Yeah, it affected the design teams a little bit, but these were still the same employees. And it wouldn't surprise me if the employees that were building these guitars, they were the guys that had been there for 10 or 15 years and had built all the 50s Les Pauls and the L5s and blah, 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 blah. So, same employees, you know. So, the history's there. It is exactly what Eric said it was. It's a 69. I will say that spooks me, that thinness right there, so I got to be real careful about protecting that because I've already driven home, but not changing the design. So anyway, I'll end the video right there. I appreciate you guys dropping in. And Eric, I'm still, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't really talk too much about it. This is one thing, this is going to be reproduction stuff. I'll just show it briefly, but that's one of the first items that came in. So we'll be getting the custom truss cover. And I'll go ahead and just plan on kind of shellacking these a little bit to age them some. But I'll get with you on that in the future, Eric. In other words, I wouldn't just put this stark white reproduction up on that. Even though I think this guy does these here in the U.S. because I think that came from up in Massachusetts or somewhere. So, and I'll verify that these little round head screws are actually vintage correct, but I'm pretty sure they are. If they're not, I do have them. And I've got the truss rods, and I went ahead and bought some pickguard material in the event, just for other projects, but this would be parchment if we were to. Now, Eric and I have already triple agreed that he's going to be providing the electronics installation. He's going to be providing the pickguard if he doesn't install that original pickguard right there. But as I clarified to him, I'm going to be making a template so that if you ever want me to machine you a parchment guard, then I can get that material. And we could either go with like the flat up, or that's the actual shiny surface. Okay. And I got black as well, just, excuse me, primarily for an Explorer replica that I'm building. But in the event, Eric wanted me to machine a black one. According to once I make my discoveries about how true to accuracy is this pickguard right here, I'll look at it just briefly, because if you're still here, you're here because you're interested in this guitar. I know that the pickguard I'm holding is a reproduction. I do know that. Well, I can't see. And I'll need to like take a toothpick out and not, in other words, not put any screws in there, but take a toothpick out and start toothpicking it to see if everything is aligning historically accurate. But typically you could start out by centering these studs. Oh, one thing I will share, if you're getting ready to remove these studs, let me get the screw. Okay, get a couple little nuts, and hopefully this will thread on there. If it doesn't, I'm not going to force it. But the way you would remove these, yeah, if you're still here, I'll just continue with the video a little bit, because I think we're only like 35 minutes. Okay, 35 minutes turns into 49 minutes pretty fast. That's awesome. I was able to clean up that thread with absolute ease. So that means we can reuse that stud there. On that note, where I'm going with this, I'm not going to remove these studs. But if I could not get these to thread up, look at that. Whoever owned this guitar, it's very, very unlikely that this guitar was ever kind of fooled around with. It was probably always owned by an adult. The fact that I screwed that on by hand is pretty incredible. So what I was going to say, if you were going to remove these studs, then you get a lock nut, you put that nut on, and then put another nut down, tighten them together, and then reach down on the bottom nut, and then after you've put your 80-watt soldering iron on it and just kind of heated it up a little bit, don't melt it, because you'll set it on fire. You'll burn out every bit of the threads, the mahogany from the heat. But you just heat it up just enough to possibly break the glue that might be there, and then reach onto the bottom nut, and then just gently turn it. But then don't just start turning, because you might be twisting it. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking about this, but just know that if you're getting ready to remove those studs, just do everything you can to make certain that you don't break them off in the body. Break them off in the body, you need to go to a professional cabinet shop with someone that is comfortable, or either a pro guitar repair, and help them extract it. But just be so careful when you're working with these studs. And as I said, I'm planning on leaving these in because they look great. And the fact that that one threaded down is a very good sign that this is always a well-made guitar. So Eric, these are not banjoed up, they're not damaged, and we will definitely be able to reuse them. And then whatever the scale is that we produce, if it's an authentic 24 and 750 thousandths scale, which is 24 and 3/4, or if you wanted the shorter 24.562 scale, then I'll be cutting that scale. I'll be building this entire neck, and this headstock and everything about this neck that I build will be based on these two locations right here and the centering of those saddles. And as I was talking to a guy in Texas that I just sold a Flying V to, Chad, we had some intonation problems, and I was spooked that it was something I had done wrong, but it was a dead string. It was it was the D string was dead, and we were at the threshold of like getting ready to move the bridge a little bit. But as I explained to Chad 2 or 3 nights ago, I bought a polyphonic TC Electronics polyphonic tuner, so it will guarantee that I've got a true quality tuner to verify my intonation. If I'm going to build and restore these multi-$1,000 guitars, the least I could do is invest in a $75 polyphonic tuner. So when I build this guitar, it will be based on those two locations right there. We don't want to move those. Okay? All right, so I appreciate you guys dropping in, and have no idea when the next video will be, but take that in. That's I can't even begin to explain to you how valuable just that one piece is, because having that right there really completes the guitar on the back once it comes together. It's going to be incredible. So, Eric, I appreciate you trusting me with your extremely rare guitar, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.